Headspace, as you are watching the Headspace, Africa's most poignant hip-hop podcast, where we talk about the news and the views that matter to the South African hip-hop fraternity and Africa at large. My name is VJ, the brother from the ancient mother, and if you're watching this, it's another one of our Project EP album reviews. Now, the artist that I'm reviewing is a bit of an OG where they come from, somebody who is kind of moved and sustained through the tides. Now, you know you can't do that without understanding how to adapt. The music industry needs resilience and it needs creativity. You can't just make it by following simple formulas. You just end up becoming a dry, nonchalant tool for capitalism to use every time it wants easy branding. But if you're going to be able to find consistency and mass appeal, individuality, originality is super important. And the artist whose album I'm about to review is definitely somebody who represents the core of that, where they come from. I'm talking about M.I Abaga, the Nigerian MC, with his latest project, The Guy. He released this last year, 2022, and it still resonates with a fresh, effervescent feel. Now, those who don't know M.I, an MC who rose pretty much in the early 2000s, 2003, 2002, in a time when Nigerian hip-hop was starting to cultivate itself around the kind of dynamics that exist within a sound that later became Afro beats. Now, the one thing to understand about Nigeria as a country is the patriotism and the fundamental politics of pride is what pushes their strength as a nation. Nigerians are resilient, and Nigerians are people who wave key aspects of who they are any and everywhere that they go. Now, this is a fundamental reason why when you talk Africa in most places that aren't Africa, you either get South Africa or you get Nigeria. And the truth is, you only get South Africa because South Africa mostly plays to Western stereotypes. But you get Nigeria because Nigeria plays into its own value uncompromisingly, and it is pushed and understood by its own system and promoted by its own culture to do that in spaces that not even the global quote-unquote world can deny. Now, this is why, as a South African, I can be honest about this. Nigerians have more real Africanness than we do. And what is this Africanness? This is not a vague, mystical value. If we are united together simply by the landmass of the continent, then Africanness doesn't really exist. But if what we mean by being African is understanding the value of what unites us in the continent, understanding how we in the continent can use the history that we've had to come together as a power within a volition to benefit and empower the economy of the continent, understanding that this cradle of humankind turned into the gold mine of Europe is history's fated stage of change. Africa is the home of transformative progress, simply because it's a place where we remember our origins, and subsequently, if you've heard the saying, you can't understand where you're going if you don't know where you come from. Now, being a South African, we lack in that aspect. We're not proud of where we come from enough to understand how to go in a direction that truly empowers us as Africans. We play a lot to American stereotypes, and we do it so well because South Africans consume a lot of American and generally Western content. Now, what's different with Nigeria, the walls are a bit closed, and for that it filters in just enough Western content to allow Nigeria to understand its place in the global world, but enough pride in its own local unique nations. Now, without going into that politics too much, this is why whenever you see a Nigerian artist as compared to a South African artist, there's more knowledge of self and more pride in self from the Nigerian aspect. Now, enter M.I Abaga, an MC who represents all of these qualities that I'm saying are characteristically Nigerian. And on this project, he continues in the consistent streak that he's been building throughout the course of his career, obviously with the ups and the downs, the beefs and the drama that any rapper goes through. But the reason M.I is M.I is, one, having a husky voice in rap is a cheat code. And if you've got great flow to go along with that husky voice, trust me, you've opened up a lot of doors. Charisma to back and and a general conscientious approach to his music is what I think has granted M.I the consistency that still keeps him alive in 2022 going on to 2023 as we are right now. Now with the guy, he simply emphasizes what I've been talking about. Why is he the man? Why is he the one who has stood the test of time? Why is he, quote unquote, the guy? He takes the best of what Africa has to offer right now. Beyond moving around the tropes of Nigerian Afro beats, he reaches out into pockets of grime, he reaches out into aspects of drill, he takes from aspects that are pretty much inspired by these bubbling electronic dance music waves that are going on all over the continent, and he brings something that, be it Nigerian in its attitude, and this Nigerian attitude again of self-assertion, self-affirmation, self-pride, but at the very same time being totally glorious and celebrating who you are and where you come from. M.I's narrative in this project is basically how he became the guy, how becoming the guy is understanding the formula of your own unique identity in the context of what the economy can provide for you. It's looking at the fact that global capitalism governs us, and global capitalism is a tool of a Western imperialist system which seeks to use Africa as an ideal to sell back into the market of primal knowledge, the market of historical idealism, and M.I is somebody who understands all of these qualities. He takes the Africa that is known and uses that to teach about the Africa that exists, and he does it in ways that are not haranguing or forceful. He simply gives you his experiences. He gives you where he is. He gives you the love songs. He gives you the songs of struggle in a way that is not overtly political, but when you listen to the bars, there's an awareness of power. And that's what politics is. Politics isn't suits or policy. Not directly. Politics starts with understanding how you can empower yourself and as a result empower others in the context given unto you, using the limitations that you have. So as a result, M.I Abaga is able to, through the constraints of both the Western imperialist structure and the subsequent musical trends and tropes that it imposes on us through pop culture, bring us an album that represents the continent at large, but speaks for Nigeria in particular. Now let's go into it more technically. 12 tracks that really focus on motivational tones, and it carries a strong religiosity which kind of comes with Nigeria. They're people of faith, so a lot of these lyrics are about how God has basically been at the center of his success, and it carries on and moves with flows that can sometimes get a bit monotonous. See, the thing is, the risk in great songwriting is you want minimalism, but you don't want to be so minimal that you're simple. Because the difference between minimalism and simplicity is minimalism is taking the profundity of life and finding ways to break down the word count into a measure that is digestive enough for the average listener to kind of relate to. It doesn't speak in tones which are too intellectual, too specific, too referential in certain areas where the everyday person doesn't understand. So minimalism is the formula to good songwriting, but sometimes some artists go so minimal that it's too simple, that it's the simple phrases and everyday catchphrases that you hear that don't make the lyrics too exciting. And I think many a track M.I kind of borderly goes into the latter. There are moments where the lyrics could be better, and not even assists from legendary MCs like Nas are enough in many instances to kind of deliver lyrics that are mind-blowingly poetic. But the good thing is, I don't think that's the point here. I think if you look at M.I's track record, he's been mind-blowingly poetic. There's a time in an artist's life where they prove their artistry, and when they've done that, then they decide where they want to go with it. And I think if you look at M.I, he's in a place right now where he's comfortable enough to just make songs that are sometimes borderline simplistic but are effective in what they do. And what is the purpose? What is the message? What is the essential reason of the songs? The songs are there to serve as a bridge between Africa and the world. We need more MCs like that. And here at the Headspace, our whole cause and our whole push and thrust is to kind of conscientize the African artist, more particularly the African hip-hop practitioner, in the fact that because hip-hop came through the vein of Africans in the Americas, we also took a little bit of the Western symptoms. And as a result, the Western symptoms come with a colonized mentality. As Africans, we often play into this idea of being the kind of black people that the West still wants and requires. And as a result, there's a need to decolonize rap and decolonize hip-hop in general, especially if we as Africans are gonna use it to empower ourselves. And I think artists like M.I Abaga are Pan-African rap. They are decolonized rap. And that is very important because it's making moves which are beyond the field of pop culture. It's actually impacting the culture of humanity at large. So ultimately, I'm going to give this project a solid 8 out of 10 because what it does is that it's a velvet description of an artist in a successive period. It points out why they are king, where they come from. It does it using tones that are familiar, yet still bridges a production pattern that is exciting enough for you to dance to. I mean, it's an album you can blast while on a cruise, on a ride, in your headphones. It's definitely geared more towards motivation. So it's an album of joy, it's an album of celebration, and I think it does that pretty well. Shout out to African hip-hop, shout out to Pan-African hip-hop, shout out to decolonized hip-hop. This is the vision. Again, my name is VJ, this is the Headspace. Shout out Nigeria, shout out Africa at large, we love you.